DCC version.
Oh, geez.
My gosh. All right. Fair enough.
Up
What was
yours
that?
recording. Pex
So,
is casting spells.
It's a very impromptu ask me anything, but feel free to ask any of these guys anything you want. You got Casey Christopherson, who is the writer extraordinaire over there at Frog God Games. He's got, what is it, like 80, 90 plus titles under your belt at this point?
They embarrassed me about that at dinner a lot. So I'm going to go. Ken Spencer's going to be, he's going to eat my lunch by the end of the year. He's getting up there.
Oh, fair enough. But the writer of some of my favorite adventures, City of Brass and Cephalon Gorges on the Moon, which is probably right up there in my top ones that I like to run and like to play. There you go.
It's so pretty.
My favorite release of 2019. And then Skeeter Green, who is head of Skeeter Green Productions and has written the fabulous Crypt of the Science Wizard, another one of my favorite adventures.
That's it behind me. That's the Crypt of the Science. No, I can't do that. Disney's gonna come shut me down.
They're probably at your house right now. But yeah, so like you guys feel free, ask any questions you want. We're just gonna chit chat and talk about North Texas and each other's projects until somebody gets curious. So
holy shit, North Texas was wonderful. I want to thank Casey for adopting my kids and getting them some gaming time under their wings. That they really enjoyed that. Ainsley was fantastic.
Yeah. Anytime
she ran her first game, didn't she?
Yeah, she ran her first game. For real, yeah. So it was just a death funnel of monsters, but it was fun. But yeah, anytime you want to send the kids this way, we'll keep them for a few days. So,
oh, I actually got something I can show you guys because some of the people are in here. Hold on, let me go behind the wizard's curtain here. Oh shit!
Magic.
Hold on.
Wait, they're cooler than mine.
Yeah, so Lawrence Hernandez is in the chat. He's done a bunch of art for Planet X. We go way back to 5th grade, but he's done a bunch of stuff. He did those fabulous Save versus Disbelief cartoons that are in the back of the phylactery. He does all those. He's done stuff for, I think, for every or almost every project going back to maybe Escape from Skullcano Island. But everything since then, he's had a piece or two in all those. I don't remember if he was in Howling Crater or not. But yeah, a lot of stuff in coming up in the future as well. And he's one of the co-creators of our Halloween zine, which is going to be called King Tut's Rootin' Tootin' RPG Extravaganza and Western Wear. The title that will confuse everyone and sell about 4 books, but I really want to write it. So.
Well, yeah, no, that's going to be great.
No, I hope so. And then you got Ed Bickford, who it was like his coming out party at North Texas.
Oh yeah.
between
speaking
Casey,
of Ed, this ties into exactly what I got here. Ed did some art for me, and I decided to go get the originals from Ed. So when you get original artwork from an artist, especially at a convention, when you're not sure what you have promised other people, sometimes the original art is not exactly what you expect. See this? I promised somebody else. Oh, was it Joe that he could have this little section? No, this was a prank they pulled on me and got me so bad I thought I was going to lose my mind. But I'm keeping that forever, and I'm actually going to put that in a frame and send it to Joe because I think he should have that.
No, that was good stuff. It was like his coming out party at North Texas. Yeah, that was the good stuff, man. He brought all of his original artwork, and we descended on him like vultures.
Yeah, I like the fact that he missed that whole joke. There was strictly that was strictly at his expense. Ed,
Yeah.
pay attention when I'm joking about it. Yeah. Yeah. Told the whole story about how you got me with that one. Yeah. So I'll let Levi tell his story still.
No stories to tell. Like I was just saying that it was kind of Ed's coming out party in North Texas. Like I think he turned a lot of heads there. I mean, the art already speaks for itself, but I think by how it is when you go to one of those conventions and you get to meet people and you talk and interact. I think that was really turned a lot of heads. I'd be really surprised if a year from now we can all afford him. So
We better be able to.
I hope so. But yeah, I was happy to pick up. I picked up quite a bit of original artwork, some covers, and a lot of my favorite interiors. And then one piece that you did, I don't remember who he did it for, but it's an open source piece. Anybody can use it. But it's the monkey, or I guess a chimp with two robotic arms.
Yeah,
and it's
that's great.
He's got like a six pack of beer and a gun. Like it's just like the best thing. So I saw that piece and immediately knew like this has to go in the Ray Guns and Robots zine.
I expect to see that as a full-size back tattoo on you, Levi, by Gamehole.
I hope so. You can go right in the back there with Cthulhu.
Yeah, that'll be great. Right on the back of your head, right on the top of your head.
No,
Have him
sure.
just kind of sprawled out like sunbathing, right on top.
I don't know how my
head.
wife would like that. So, but we'll give it a try. But as far as
love it, I'm sure.
As far as North Texas, did either one of you guys get a chance to play in any games, or were you just manning the booth the whole time?
No. I won the DCC funnel because I'm the best. I have a trophy to prove it.
Indeed.
Yeah, I got to play.
Yeah, that was a really good one.
I got to be in.
Matt Gullett ran a really good game.
Yeah, Alex Kammer was doing a play test for something that he's writing for his Thay book.
Nice.
Him and Ed, some guy named Ed Green something. I don't know what it is.
I wouldn't know anything about a lot of the art that's going into that project at all.
No, not even a little bit.
Not even that much.
Yeah, no. But it was really good. We did not roll one combat die the entire 3 hours we did it. It was all role playing and figuring stuff out, and it was a jailbreak. And we did it with no combat. It was very interesting, very well done. Alex's writing was really good on that. Gave us a lot of opportunities to do things. So it was a lot of fun. And I ran.
No, most definitely. Yeah, same. Yeah. I ran Jungle 2 and the Mummy Bride actually quite a bit. In that DCC game though, I did, as Joe's pointing out, I did become an undead fetus god.
Yes.
By the end of the game, which I'll take that as a win.
Yeah, that seems very on brand.
You can end the game as a giant arboreal fetus deity in the floating in the clouds. I will take that. Yeah, I can walk away knowing I did my job.
Yeah, that's if you're gonna end a game, that's a good way to end it.
No, for sure. Casey, what about you? What did you get? I mean, other than Ainsley's first game, how did that go?
That was fun. I don't think I actually played. I just sat and just kind of was her open source rule book, and all I did was make shit up.
Nice.
As I do. But she did well. It was her first run. She kind of made a little murder funnel. They just picked minis out of the bag, and then they looked up the stats for the minis and ran those in waves against the characters, kind of like we did when we were 12 or whatever. So stuff. That's how you learn, or that's how I demonstrate what a bad dungeon master father role, whatever that I am. That's all she could come up with. But no, I got to run the first half of the Mushroom God from Space. Got to, and sadly, Levi and I just couldn't connect. He wanted to play that so bad, and it just he was in a game, I was in a game. I didn't feel good for a good chunk of it. Got some bad food on the road, I think. But I bounced back. We had what was the other one I ran? Cat and Fiddle from my zine. So that was fun getting the players to actually interact with that. It was great that Carl Hale's daughter immediately goes, "I know where the key is," and she was right, 100%. But nobody wanted to go look in that particular location for reasons.
I think that was Carl's wife, Courtney.
My bad. I wasn't sure. I thought.
But that's hey. But you know what? She's very young looking. I'm sure she'll take that.
Okay. And then there's me being bad and not remembering who everyone is. And I think I ran. What else did I run? Blood Lagoon. Ran Blood Lagoon and watched the guys blow the side out of the pirate blockhouse with a natural one. And that's where I told our friend Matt Finch, who hates anything that has to do with guns in his RPG games. I'm like, no, man, you live it for the natural one when they blow the gun up in their hands. That's what it's all about. Yeah. And in this case, it was a 10-pound cannon. So big boom. And,
big bada boom.
Fair enough.
We had a blast. We had a really good time. All the games, can't say enough about how great it was to run into everybody, to see all our friends for the first time in like 18 months of solitude.
Yeah.
So
it was crazy. Yeah, I
had a lot of really. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was just saying that I had a lot of really game heavy days at that con. I had 4 games in one day at one point, and then most of the other days were 3 games. Other than that, I was just at the booth with you, Skeeter. So I had a great game with Tom Wilson. He did what was it? Return to the Lost City, the old Lost City module. That was great. Steve Marsh ran the game. I was in that with a couple folks. We did Matt Gullett's DCC game. That was great. Really, that one was really a highlight. Matt's game was not only because I got to play with some of my friends, not just strangers, but also it was just very, just very fast, very quick, very deadly. I think I lost 4 characters in that funnel before I was able to.
Oh yeah, no, it was brutal. it was super brutal. And then when the players started killing other players, things got a little tense for a moment, but
father and son.
Yeah, we rebounded after all that.
Yeah, it's a little different when you're it's your child trying to kill off your characters. It's a little bit more you kind of hung in there a little bit.
Yeah.
But other than that, I played in Chris Holmes had a space game, like a vintage sci-fi space game called Slimy Green Things from Space. That was a lot of fun. The group on that was really good. Joe was in that, and Liz and Mike Stewart were in that. So it was just a lot of fun. Very, very cool. And he's a cool dude anyways. Like, he's a real funny guy, Chris is. But coincidentally, he was the only person that I killed in my games all weekend long. So he got eaten by a protoplasmic slime. But other than that, he was good to go. All right, we got a question from X that says, if you could travel back in time to your 10-year-old self and give one piece of advice, what would it be? Wow. Guys, Skeeter?
Oh, I got a solid one. When you finally break into RPGs with a stable, solid company, and the head of that company tells you can't write, it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right, man. Just keep doing it.
Tells you can't draw.
Yeah, it's cool. It's not the end of the world.
Not.
There is life after disappointment.
Yeah. Well, that was
Casey,
one of the things coming up is, all of the submissions to Dragon and Dungeon Magazine, where you get the thank you for your submittal. We regret to inform you. Don't worry about it. It happens.
Got a few of those.
Yeah. From the same people.
Yeah. Well, after you get like the 3rd or 4th one of those, you're like, did they even make a new one, or is this just the same one with a different date on it?
That's actually a pretty interesting story for me. It doesn't answer the question, but I'll get to that. The answer to the question is 10-year-old self is like, you're gonna meet all of the people whose names are on the cover of these books. Just be cool.
Don't
'Cause they're
bow
all-
like a geisha like I did.
Yeah. Just be cool. Just act normal, and you're in. You know. So
Yeah. What about you, Levi?
What was the story you were going to tell? What was the story you were going to tell, Casey?
Nah, I already. Okay. So I submitted stuff. I submitted art after I graduated from college, or right around my last semester, to Dungeon and Dragon, and I also sent it to Wizards of the Coast. I had no idea TSR was in the middle of bankruptcy at the time because we didn't have an internet. You know,
Right.
You basically had to live in Wisconsin and read it out of the business journal that this was going on, right? And that there was going to be a buyout from Wizards of the Coast. And obviously my stuff at the time looked more like stuff that would have went in, say, 1994, 1995 Dungeon and Dragon magazine. In fact, pretty damn close to the stuff that they were publishing at the time. And in some cases better, other cases I could have used a little work. That's just the way you are when you're young and you're starting out. And I got the form rejection letters, you know, and I was like, I'm done. And I kind of packed up all my game books and just kind of said, the heck with it for about 8 or so years. And then anyways, things happened. The new edition came out. I got discovered as an author and all of that jazz. And I'm at a convention in Little Rock, Arkansas, sitting next to Jim Ward. And I'm drawing in my sketchbook, and he goes, wow, those kind of remind me of my friend Jim's work, his Holloway and all that. And he's like, but it also kind of looks like Errol Otis stuff. And I was like, didn't you used to be the managing editor at Dragon Magazine, like, 10 years ago or whatever? He goes, well, yes, but I wasn't the art director, or I would have hired you on the spot.
Good save, Jim.
So, justified. Yeah.
No, he can be diplomatic.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
Oh, and just to let everyone know, I mean, I know we all look like the fresh new faces of the current generation of RPG designers, but there was a time before the internet. I just want to let people know there wasn't always these Zoom meetings. Oh wow, you're going back. Thank you, Ed. Yeah.
No, man, I didn't step back into even playing D&D until maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And that was really only after meeting Casey. I was out of it for a really long time. He between him and Rapanathek and enjoying that dungeon from Necromancer, that kind of pulled me back in a little bit. But it wasn't until my son, he was probably 14 at the time. He came to me and said, "Dad, do you know anything about Dungeons and Dragons?" And I was like, "Well, just so happens that I might know a little something about that." So I could be like, cool dad. I could be. We could have something in common because he was getting to that teenage age where it was like, he was starting to drift. I was starting to become less and less cool, and he was starting to drift away. But D&D helped us find a common ground, and it was right as I think 5th edition was coming out. So we picked up that box set, and we were able to kind of find that common ground and play. So that was good. If somebody knew I could throw all my old tricks on, all my old players, I already seen he'd seen behind the curtain and seen all my tricks, but he was only 14. He didn't even have that yet. So
he didn't know the magic.
For sure. How do you guys like gaming with your kids?
Love it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, no, I think it's great because my son especially games very differently than I do. Like he's all about the personal interaction and asking questions and finding stuff out from the NPCs. And I mean, when I play, nobody has a clue what I'm going to do from 1 second to the next, and neither do I.
Yeah. I noticed that too. The younger kids that I play with are more apt to communicate with the creatures that they encounter and not necessarily judge the monster by its monstrosity, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And whereas, which is the way my wife plays, and all of the people between like 40 and 60 that I play with are like murder hobos, and I'm like,
Right.
what happened here? Didn't we used to do that when we were kids?
Yeah, no, I didn't. I never did that.
That's a real juncture in, I don't know if that's the right term, but it's a real difference in guys who are our age, who are, designing modules or adventures or scenarios, however. And then I find like the younger crowd, because there's a whole couple of generations beneath us who are, just flooding Twitter and D&D and Beyond and, all these other platforms with their ideas and their modules and their zines and all this stuff. And I find that their adventures are quite a bit different, like I'm just as guilty as anybody of, designing a monster hotel, where you've got a couple levels where it's, trick trap monster, or, a little bit of fluff here and there. But I find that a lot of the younger generation, they really are, like Casey was saying with his kids, they really are more story driven,
Right.
Your son is, he's looking into trying to interact with NPCs more and, trying to find out all these little bits of information. And that's a big component of stuff, like the stuff that I'm picking up from these younger creators. I mean, I think that's great.
It has in the last probably 8 years or so changed the way I design and write adventures, which is funny because now I will see, and I mean that goes all the way with like stuff I put in Bard's Gate when we worked on that, Skeeter, and you were noticing more story driven stuff and less like just hack and slash. And I had a module that's a lot more story driven come out a couple years ago, and the reviewer, I could tell exactly where the reviewer was coming from. They were a grognard, older 40s 50s guy who was reviewing it, who's like, well, it's got a really complicated plot and I'm pretty sure my players wouldn't like it. That was pretty much the review. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's because all of the characters have relationships with each other that if you uncover them through asking them a question instead of putting a knife in their heart might give you a more interesting or different experience. So
was that Murder Cliffs?
Yeah.
I could tell from your description of it because that was a very interactive module.
Yeah.
That's called
that's one of the things that I learned when I was doing Crypt is I would have the rough drafts of things and give them to my wife, who is a gamer but not a hardcore gamer. So she would read through the storyline and be like, okay, I don't understand this part and this part. And if it was a game mechanic, I could just say, well, it's a game mechanic. This is what's going on. But it really made me conscientious of my descriptions and how I was providing information. And it was really helpful, especially for the 5th edition when I did that one. Because 5th edition has a lot of skill checks, and one of the bangs against the rule set is, oh, if you roll some dice, you solve a problem. But the way I did it is if you make your skill check, you get more information. So you don't get handed anything. You get a clearer picture of what's going on. And I think it turned out really well. And I've gotten good reception and feedback on it.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, Jeff Talanian was doing the exact same thing that you described there, where he wasn't handing you the answer, but if you made your skill check, he gave you just a little bit more information to kind of fill that gap. You still had to figure it out yourself.
Oh yeah.
We have a question in the chat from Robbie Cunningham. It says, "What do you think we can do to get more females gaming or keep them playing?" Casey, like, how can you keep your daughter interested?
Give her a job in the business. No, that's a cheap answer, but actually it works. But no, it was funny because it was her friends came to her and were like, "Hey, we want to play Dungeons and Dragons," and she's like, "Oh, well, just so happens my dad designs stuff for Dungeons and Dragons or whatever," and it was kind of like, "Oh, your dad's kind of scary." I get that too, Skeeter, so it's okay. And And she's like, yeah, whatever. But anyways, they came over, and then parents came along with the kids, and so that's how we kind of started that whole thing. But to get, and I'm not gonna get cornered into making broad-based statements about female players and any of that kind of stuff. But I have played with female gamers now for over 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
And they make a good chunk of my gaming table all the time. And they also like things that are a bit more story oriented. They are not necessarily all murder hobos. There's always the lady whose husband brought her along and she's never played before. And about 10 sessions in, she starts developing her independence from him telling her how to play the game and starts, sinking into the character. They like the stuff that's, I feel that my female players have enjoyed things that are more story driven and more character driven. But you do have to have a certain amount of action for everybody at the table, because quite frankly, sitting and having a Mary Worth conversation gets boring after a while. So,
Right.
But giving them a little autonomy. For example, Ainsley's character is a rogue. That's her preference to play. It turns out every personality exam we've ever given her has made her a Sith Lord or a Slytherin or a neutral evil, out for themselves assassin kind of person. I didn't know I did that.
This is my surprised face.
And yeah, so but like the membership in the guild and having to pay a tithe to the guild and having to go steal certain things for the guild, having her own little quest on the side that would keep her engaged in the game, that made a big difference for her friend. Her friend got the ring Spark, which is a powerful magic item in the City of Brass that allows you to summon a small fire elemental that levels up as you level up. And so that character had a very emotional relationship with that player had an emotional relationship with that NPC. So that was where she brought her interest in, and I think that's just the kind of deal that you get going. My wife's character, she hated her character, so I didn't really do a whole lot for her the last time we had a campaign, because she played every game as if she was ready to die, so that she could get a new character that she wanted to play, and managed to become probably the most powerful cleric I've ever had. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Skeeter, did your daughter play? I know your son does, but I didn't know if your daughter did.
So my daughter started playing in Ian's game at North Texas, and I had to tamp down the "Are you kidding me? Her first gaming isn't with me," dad response. Oh, and no, but she really picked it up well. She saved the day in Ian's game, and she really enjoyed it. So we're gonna get her in a game here during the week. But as far as the question, the thing that really motivated my wife, Jen, what she really enjoys is detective work. If there is something, if there is some deduction that needs to go, if there's, a puzzle or we need to figure this out, that kind of cerebral part more than the hack and slash is what her and her friends were interested in, because they, it may be a husband and wife thing, but she was definitely trying to outsmart me. If I have a puzzle out there, well, by God, she's going to solve that and thwart my plan, and in my experience of gaming, and this is not to say that there are not the Red Sonias out there that just want to lop the head off something. A lot of the women in gaming have been more cerebral in their gaming than the guys. A lot of guys just want to sit down, roll some dice, and kill some things. Probably because they're frustrated they can't do it in real life. I will totally generalize about men because I is one. So I feel comfortable about that. But yeah, I think but like you were saying a little bit earlier, Levi, I think the whole gaming spectrum is moving to a more complex and deeper game than it used to be. I mean, it used to be, okay, I'm going to roll into this stone corridor and I'm going to kill these little tiny dragon dudes. Now it's like, okay, we're going to find this location, because you don't even necessarily get plopped down in where you're supposed to be adventuring anymore. We're going to find the location. We're going to figure out these puzzles. We're going to get this singular piece of this larger item we got to get, and then we got to go somewhere else to get something else. And it becomes very campaign driven rather than I'm gonna go down the street and kill somebody. I mean, that's fun, and it certainly has its place, but I think people are starting to move away from that. It's almost like everything is getting more cinematic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you're presenting a movie in which everybody who's at the table gets to be a character in the movie, which is awesome.
No, everybody gets to touch the ball,
Yeah.
Everybody gets a chance, to do the thing, and that's how it should be. I've noticed a lot with Casey, a lot of his adventures. That's a real strong piece of them. There's always something for everyone to do. At least in the ones that I've run, there's always an opportunity for everybody to, like I said, again, touch the ball, to have, to implement their skill set in some sort of way. And I always really like that about your adventures, Casey. But with my experience with females, women at the gaming table, is actually a little bit different than your guys's. Primarily because I find that the women I often play with, they're the worst murder hobos of them all. They are the most bloodthirsty and really go after it. And I that's just different from individual to individual, just like it would be with anybody. But it's just funny that some of your female players have been more introspective or more like problem solving driven, and again, some of mine have just it's been the most bloodthirsty of them all.
My wife, her current character is a wizard, and she will set everything on fire if it means that she gets to go to bed earlier.
Oh yeah, I'm not suggesting you ever turn your back on any of these people. No. And, always move around with one eye open.
Yeah,
preferably
pocketed Black Razor and used it on another NPC who was kind of integral to the plot, and Crit had murdered him, so drank his soul, the whole deal. She's like, yeah.
But having said that, some of them are the worst murder hobos. The very last Zoom game that I played, we had one female player, and she was able to keep. So I'm trying to keep the whole game on track, and she was the only one who had presence of mind with this band of jokers, that are just inside jokes and laughing, and things are getting derailed. She was the only one who had presence of mind to help me unconsciously steer it back on the track, or at least to some sort of form to where we could actually play, rather than it just turning into, everybody telling stories. So there's that. So I was very thankful she was at the table that night, because man, that really had the potential. It was like herding cats, trying to get these guys to stay on course. We had an hour and a half, and that was it. That. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. It was a big challenge. So, but I was really glad that she was there to steer that back on track. Here we go from Pex. Who do you consider your top competitor or rival? Well,
what is this, like naked up oil wrestling, or is this like a serious question? Should we take this seriously?
Well, in the hair department, it would be Ben Barsh, because he has a full head of gorgeous.
That is not a competition for either of us except for Casey. Casey is going to place in a distant third to Ben. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah, I know.
Listen, there is a top 3 in RPGs of hair. One of them being Ben Barsh, the other being John McGuire from Vintage RPG, and then Heath Farndon when he takes off that hat.
Oh yeah,
It's like a living
Yeah.
thing that moves on his head. I mean, those are 3 very impressive heads of hair. So yeah, I can't say anything. But as far as like a competitor, I don't feel like I have a competitor. Anybody that is on the indie level that I am, we're all the same. And this is not, RPGs is not a famine right now, it's a feast. So
Right.
there's enough for everybody by scores and multitudes of hundreds. There's enough for us all. And we make each other stronger by supporting each other. We get ideas, we get, feedback, editing, art direction. Casey hooks me up with an artist. I can hook him up with a graphic designer, back and forth. Like we can all help each other. So as far as a competitor, I definitely don't have a rival, but as far as a competitor, I don't feel that way at all. And the big boys, even the top 5, third-party publishers, we're so far away from them and the means of what they have available to them and what they can do, that it's not a competition. And even if it was, I like to look at the people who I've watched as I've tried to model how I'm going to act and respond to things. That might not be the best terminology. The people that I look up to in the gaming hobby, I watch how they deal with the other folks around them, and so far it's been a very good like learning by example. Like I watch how Zach Glazier, like how he deals with other folks, and there's a lot to learn from watching that guy. The same with Alex. You can watch folks like that and see how they conduct themselves, and then you can learn a lot
Right.
from that. Casey?
That's very, that's.
And Casey's frozen. Casey, come back to us.
All right, Skeeter.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, at the North Texas convention, Levi was part of the Independent Publishers Union, Local 666, which is literally just a group of us small publishers that decided, hey, there is 0 sense in all of us ponying up the money for a table that we're gonna put 6 square feet of table space, and then we're gonna have this vast empty table. Why don't we work together? And we're all friends. We have all worked together. We try to help each other. That's where it's at. I mean, we are the little garage bands of RPGs, all throwing our gear into one van to get from one city to another, and just, hey, dude's got a flat tire, we'll pull over and help him out. Or yeah, his amp broke down, you can borrow my gear. That's, I have personally said this for years, and it blew some people away when I started doing it, because it's very anti-commercial. And anybody, I mean, like Casey, who's been around the commercial side of this for years and years and years, he used to get on my case because we would call it a business. And it's like, this RPGs aren't a business. I mean, this is a
no. It's not that it isn't a business. It's they're not an industry.
Right.
We're not putting airplanes in the air. We're not putting boats at sea. But we are. So I'm not always right. I just have.
But I get your meaning. But there is, like Levi is saying, at our level, there shouldn't be competition. We are boutique publishers.
Bingo.
There are enough people that are interested in the flavors, each one of us. Like, we're all little tiny pizza shops, and we're making pizzas.
I have firm feelings about people taking RPGs too seriously, because people who took the RPGs too seriously were the people who caused us problems when we were kids. And it was either kids who played too seriously that scared the hell out of the adults, or it was adults who'd never played it before who took it too seriously because they were in the throes of the satanic panic. And Yeah, it's fun. It's supposed to be. It's games. Games are supposed to be fun. They teach you a lesson. They help you develop problem solving and social skills. Uh, but when you're like, well, in the industry, and it's like, okay, settle down. You know, Steve Jobs, we're rolling dice and we're
Calm
pretending to
down.
kill kobolds. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
We're killing orcs and using
So
silly voices.
there's my rival. There's my
So-
rival is people who take this and from the top down. If you take it way too seriously, at the end of the day, it's games that are there supposedly for your entertainment and amusement, and not something that you should, you know, I don't know. But that's where I'm at. So
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would
it's Planet
say
X
as
games, not take it too seriously games.
yeah, I
Sorry,
would
sorry,
say
Stu.
the only person or people who I would consider a rival is any company that is outwardly, intentionally a dick to anybody coming up in the industry, or somebody who treats the artists or editors or layout people or other freelancers like shit. Then yeah, we have a problem, because you don't have to do that.
No.
Sorry, I got all aggro there for a minute. but it happens. I mean, some people
It
are like
does.
that because they feel like there is a finite pool of money and they want to get their slice. And I get that. I mean, that's a business mindset. But this isn't a, I mean, it is a business, but we can't have a business mindset. We're creatives. And I'm even throwing myself in there because Jesus, I'm wretched. But anyway, we need to be, once this stuff goes away and RPGs are no longer viable, if that day ever comes, that is going to be a huge loss for a lot more people than we all think. Because, I mean, Gary influenced pop culture. I mean, I watched Ready Player One. We just watched it yesterday. And the green demon head is on the back of the van. You know, that it's just this little
Huge plot point.
takeaway for it. But even beyond that, computer games owe 90% of their success to tabletop games. And it just, you know, Dungeons and Dragons has left a mark on society, for better or for worse, that will never go away. And there is a respect earned from that. So we don't need to tear each other down. We need to keep this going,
No.
stoke the fires.
You know, like you were talking about, everybody wants to get their little slice. That's true, but the best way to get your little slice is to just show up. You know, this
Right.
is what when I was very first starting out, I was asking Casey for advice. You know, he was, to me, he was like the industry vet. You know, he'd been in the trenches, you know, for all these years, and I was watching him from the outside and thinking, oh man, that guy gets to write some really cool stuff.
That's
But the
just because
truth
he
was,
looks
is that
super
if I had-
haggard.
it's rosacea.
Well, the truth is, if I had shown up myself and just kept writing and writing and writing, I could have got my slice a little sooner too. And that was his advice to me, was just, hey man, sit down and write the damn thing, which is what I did, and it worked. So if you show up and you do the work, then, you know, it may not work the first time. It may not even work the third, fourth, or fifth time, but eventually you will learn from those failures and you'll get to a spot to where it does work. So yeah,
I've been working on my
that's
neighbor.
my enemy.
So I got a question from Tom that says, what are your thoughts on OSR's huge upswing in the last couple of years as it happens parallel to more cinematic, narrative driven games? Levi, since you are a B movie fanatic, talk to us about
That's
this
true.
one.
There's probably lots of reasons for that, but the one that really strikes me is the simplicity in the rules. When you sit down with a bunch of people who've never played role-playing games before, and you have a beast of a rule set in front of you. I'm not going to say 5th edition, but that would be a beast of a rule set to some people, not necessarily to us because we've been playing for 30 plus years or whatever. But that could be intimidating to some people learning that bulk of rules. But with OSR, it's also simple, and I'm not just talking about just D&D, I'm not just talking about BX or 1st edition or whatever. There are some really, really simple rule sets out there that, take 1 die, or some that don't even have dice, that you can learn in 2 minutes. That all gets roped into that old school Renaissance, that old school rule set. So
Call of Cthulhu
the
for
ease of
Sentinel dice.
Yeah. That ease of rules is really what has drawn me back to 1st edition and OSR to begin with. Like you'll see, like when I do the phylactery and magic and shit and all these OSR zines that I have coming out, they're all 1st edition rules or BX. I mean, you can really, plus you get, as a publisher, you get so much more space when you have a stat block line that's this big versus one that's this big. You know what I mean? Is it as versatile? Not necessarily, but that's where the role playing comes in, and that's where the imagination comes in. So, in short, that's my one little corner of that answer.
Mm-hmm. The ease that you can throw down a game. I've written just a metric ton of Castles and Crusades, for example, and I'm actually talking to them about going back and redoing one of my very first modules because it came out, I believe, in a 3rd edition, and now they have Castles and Crusades, have for 15, 18 years now, and to rewrite it for Castles and Crusades would be pretty fun. You can run through a module, an old school module, in like a 32-page booklet in like 1 or 2 game sessions. You can't do that with most of the hardback campaigns coming out with from Wizards of the Coast. You can't. And we, the other companies that I work with provide 5th edition material that you can play in 1 or 2 sessions. But as Levi says, those stat blocks get thick and eat up a lot of the space. You throw in 3-4 monsters and you've got 6 pages worth of print right there. And the kids actually seem to respond to it. And I'll tell you what my theory on that is. A lot of the kids play some really hard video games, or they play the video games on super hard. And, old farts like us who were, there at the birth of video games, I might be playing that on regular, because my arthritis is not letting me, feel the Call of Duty that I used to feel. And neither is my blood pressure. So,
Yep.
But one of the most popular games, one of the most popular fantasy games of the last like 8-9 years is Dark Souls, and the Dark Souls saga is extremely freaking hard. It's like Legend of Zelda 3rd playthrough hard all the time, and you die, you go all the way back to like whatever the save point is, and there's long distances between the save points, and you get to the save point, you don't have most of your gear. Oops. And so these kids are getting their taste of these OSR games, and they're like, this is like Dark Souls, where if you mess up, you're dead meat. And they like that challenge level increase. Believe me, they play just as much of the role-playing stuff. They resolve their skill checks just like any other game that's a more advanced thing. But they like that whole, you get hit, you could die. And that
lethality
brings a whole different play style. And I think it's like just a maturing process for some of them. They played like a 5th edition game or something where it's superhero game, more or less, very difficult to die. And if you do, it's going to be in a very epic way. And then they go back to this, people are flimsy bags of meat and they get hit really hard and they're going to break apart, so, but yeah, that's my vibe on that.
All right.
I think there's a huge difference between the story of a module and the particular game mechanics that go along with it. And I've had this argument, and I've talked to people a number of times. They have to be separate. You have to have a story that you're telling, in this module, and then you can put the game mechanics to it. Some of it is dependent, some of the story is dependent on what you can do, but the game mechanics, in my opinion, and the way I write it, are conflict resolution numbers. So you put that to the story later on. Like if there's whatever the page count per books, it's going to be different for each game set of game mechanics, but the story is the same. Like I think I could tell Crypt of the Science Wizard with OD&D, AD&D, 3rd edition, 4th edition, 5th edition, 17th edition when it comes out. I hope I can milk that story when it's 17th edition. But yeah, I don't see necessarily the different game editions being a different story. That's just not how I do it. So I don't know if I answered that question at all. I just said some words.
We got one more question in the chat, and then I think it's going to wrap it up. We're kind of zeroing in on an hour here. This one's from Joe. It says, how do you feel about your games being streamed? I've had a couple games streamed, more than a couple, but a couple some different scenarios streamed, and I love it. I like knowing that there are people out there enjoying the adventure. It doesn't matter to me that plot points get leaked or people find out things about the adventure. If you're watching the stream, then you probably already know what goes on in the adventure, and watching it won't spoil anything for you. I like watching it, even other people's games, because you can tell. We all know how much work goes into putting things like putting these adventures together, especially some of these mega adventures, like City of Brass or Skullcano or these big adventures. City of Brass being much larger than Skullcano, but you put all this work into it, so you want to see people enjoy it. You want to see people enjoying the fruits of these labors. We should go the same for artists and layout folks too. That's something you worked on. You devoted minutes of your life, hours, days of your life sometimes to making these adventures. So just knowing that people are out there having a good time, or breaking your system sometimes. Maybe they'll find a way to break something in your module that you didn't see before. These are all good things. And so when it comes to streaming, I like it all.
Hey, I got to jump in. I got to actually take off early. I got a day job thing. So
no worries.
I
apologize.
Thank you for doing this,
Peter. I appreciate it.
Good questions, everybody. We'll see you in the funny papers.
Later, Keith.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So that about wraps it up for all of us. Casey, thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to your chapter in Jungle Tomb of the Mummy Bride DCC. That's going to be a good one. You always bring the heat. So maybe we can even get Ed in the chat, Lawrence. Maybe we can get them to do some art for it, if that's something they want to do. All right, guys. Well, thanks everybody for showing up, and thank you for all your questions. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Levi.
And bye. Thanks, man. All right.